Hello and welcome to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 11. I'm Sunanda Jaiseelan. Today we're bringing you part 2 of our agenda setting conversations that we call Springboard, where we give entrepreneurs like yourself the opportunity to have a seat in the front row. Tonight's conversation speaks with the co-founders of MamaEarth, the co-founder of Mobikwik and the co-founder of MakeMyTrip to ask them their highlights, what their journey has been, their opportunities, their challenges, but also what it means to be one of India's most lucrative businesses. Ritvika Gupta with this conversation, listening.
Startup ecosystems are emerging all over the world and have garnered traction both from governments and investors. The Economic Survey of 2021-2022 declared India as the third largest startup ecosystem in the world after the US and China, with over 14,000 new startups in 2021-2022. While these numbers paint an encouraging picture of India as a startup hub, they also underline the importance of an ecosystem that nurtures innovation and fosters ambition. Joining us today are three of India's most celebrated startups, MamaEarth, MakeMyTrip and Mobikwik, shedding light on their ideas for a new India and charting the roadmap for the country's exponential rise.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, and a very good evening. Ghazal, Varun, Rajesh, Upasna, it's a pleasure having you here with us today. So today's discussion, it's titled Springboard to Success. So our attempt tonight will be to really find out if there is a formula to success. So tonight, we're going to try and understand what it takes to build a long-lasting, successful, profitable business. And Ghazal, I would like to start with you. You started MamaEarth as a baby care label, right? And now you have evolved into selling products from the personal care space and much more. So tell me, is there a formula for success?
I think like we often talk between, Varun and I often talk between ourselves, the only thing which is directly proportional to success is hard work and a lot of it. And the more you do it, the more chances of being successful just keeps growing. Other than that, I think it's more of a hit and trial method. You keep doing, you keep failing, you keep learning until the time you're moving on. You'll figure it out, I think. So we did start as a baby care brand early on. I think back then that was our vision. The only thing which helped us going forward was our key focus on understanding our consumers, which paid big time because they are the ones who actually decided the course for the brand. They are the ones who told us that we could not just play in baby care, but also in adult care as a segment, which helped us grow from just 6 products when we launched ourselves to more than 300 products in our portfolio today. And I think, again, that same focus helped us not just build MamaEarth, but also the 5 new brands that we've launched. So yeah, that's how we've reached where we are today.
Fantastic. Rajesh, I want to come to you right now. You're in a sector that faced a lot of turmoil during the pandemic. And if I'm not wrong, it was around that time as well, you took over as the group CEO of MakeMyTrip. Tell me, did you find yourself rethinking leadership strategies, growth strategies? How did MakeMyTrip adapt?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Not only us, the entire travel industry went through a lot. And we, given the fact that we've been in the business for over 2 decades, maybe we had a little bit of an advantage of having seen some of the crises in the past. But I must admit, this was the mother of all. It was huge. The fact that our revenue sort of went down by 95% at the onset of pandemic was a clear indication of how serious this crisis was. And I guess there was learnings from the past that we had to get back to the drawing board and figure out how do we sort of do the crisis management. That was one part of it. But I think what was very important from our point of view was, and having seen in the past, and I guess Ghazal was alluding to it, that it's always a long haul journey and there's no substitute for hard work. What we needed to do was not necessarily panic of the situation, but to get into action to actually manage the situation on one hand. And more importantly, that how do you actually see, or have the ability to see life post the crisis? I'm very happy to share that we ended up in the last 2 years probably ended up building new platforms, like really scalable potential platforms and the new avenues of revenues like never before. Like, we got into business segment, corporate business segment, we built a platform, we built a travel agents platform, we launched in the GCC market right in the middle of pandemic, we built a mini fintech platform called Trip Money, we built a advertisement platform where partners can come and build, we built an affiliate platform where we can actually power a lot of the horizontals and so on. So I guess that was really the focus, that was, the strategy, that think more about life after the pandemic rather than thinking about only the pandemic.
Right. Sure. Upasana, I would like to come to you now. You, along with Bipin, set up Mobikwik back in 2009 at a time when India was 100% cash economy. So, of course, I would like to know how you had that foresight, but from a visionary idea to now a successful business. Tell us how your journey has been, and also did being an early entrant into the market, was that an advantage?
Very long question with too many peeling of the onions. So pleasure to be here in this panel, and I do think that there are several businesses where first mover advantage does play, but I think in our case we were a little bit too early, so we wasted a few years bootstrapping and working at it the hard way. And when you say how were the early days like, the early days were just struggle. I think founders who are starting now or in the last 5 years have no idea, because India has such an evolved angel and seed ecosystem now. So when we started, you could count the number of seed investors in India on your fingers. So of course there was Indian Angel Network, etc. And also the area that we started in, it was very difficult. Like most people would laugh. My own father laughed at me कि मैं US से छोड़ के वापस आ रही हूँ because I want to do a fintech startup. He's like, you're crazy. Who needs digital payments in India? We started very humbly from my living room and 2 laptops on a dining table. And the idea was simply that kuch to karenge. We'll start with the wallet. We'll start with simplifying bill payments, because at the time people used to stand in queues at stores to pay their electricity bill and mobile bill. And so that's how we got started. And first 1-2 years were very difficult. But by year 3 and 4, I think we could see things playing out. And I guess I'm on a treadmill and haven't had a chance to look back.
That's
and with
amazing.
everything said and done, I would still say, if there are people in the audience, I think all fintech startups put together, we have still only scratched the surface, because less than 10% of India has access to credit, less than 3% of Indians have access to investment or insurance products. So still a very long market for many players to come in.
It's really amazing. Varun, I want to come to you. Whenever I'm speaking to D2C brands these days, the common idea or the larger, model that they're talking about is content to commerce. In fact, it's content, commerce, and community. So what is your view on this business model? And I know because Ghazal just mentioned that you guys have acquired a number of established brands, and some of them happen to be in the content space. So what is your view? How is this going to really help you expand your portfolio?
I think while we refer to some of these things as D2C brands, etc., but finally brands are built in the minds of consumers. Right? And all of these are channels which evolve, right? I mean, there is modern trade, there is e-commerce, there is D2C as medium, and they will keep evolving. Right? Content, community, and commerce, right, while are buzzwords today, right, have been the underlying drivers of building a brand for decades, right? I mean, you've always needed content to reach out to the consumer. And now the medium has changed. The consumer actually goes and searches for a problem statement on let's say, Google, and they actually like to read before they make a decision around a purchase. And similarly, communities were always present. Word of mouth, in fact, for decades has been the biggest driver for brand purchase. We, as consumers, want to know about others' experiences, right, of usage of that brand before we take that decision. So it's exactly that same insight, right? And commerce, of course, right? I mean, that's what we have all based our businesses on for decades. It used to happen in a physical space, and it's now happening in a digital space, which is a massive disruption because that's just, they used to exist this whole geographic racism in a manner in India, and which was not capturing the total potential and purchasing power that exists across the towns in India, and suddenly because of e-commerce, and those walls have broken down. So it doesn't matter if you live in a tier 5 or tier 7 city for that matter, and you have the same access from an information as well as ability to transact perspective that anyone in Metro has. Right? And it's showing up in the numbers, if you see, for some of the commerce startups where the percentage contribution of tier 2 and beyond, right, has significantly increased for them. Right? So I think it's still the same underlying insights, right, but great packaging buzzwords which are working for us.
I'm going to take a quick commercial break on that note. We'll continue our conversations here on IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow's Springboard. That's on the other side. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow's Springboard. You're watching a special series of conversations talking about the big picture for India's entrepreneurs as they capitalize on the Amrit Kaal.
I think, Rajesh, I have, seen you mention on a couple of occasions that you want to build MakeMyTrip, into a super app. So tell us, of course, what does that entail, super app for travel? And today I feel, consumers, they are not just looking to buy an airline ticket or book a, hotel, but they want to buy an experience. So how is MakeMyTrip, really, contributing to that overall customer experience? And what role does technology have to play in this?
I think it was a fashion statement to make, so I ended up making that statement. Everyone was talking about super app, so I ended up saying, okay, we will also build a super app. That's on lighter vein. But, jokes aside, the underneath thought was, and a lot of the businesses on online e-commerce were trying to, use one hook or the other to acquire customers and then build many use cases on top of it. And it had happened in in China as well. And a lot of the learnings were also coming from that market. One thing was very clear from the word go, it has not changed, when we started back in 2000 till today, that we didn't want to move away from travel expert. We wanted to be travel expert back then, we want to be travel expert now. So if travel is the category or the vertical, whatever you want to call it, now within travel, we wanted to solve for every little consumer use case. And that is where this whole travel super app sort of vision came from. Whereas, and that is how we have evolved already.
Well, that was really insightful. Upasana, coming to you. So India is known as the fintech factory of the world. I want to understand from you, where do you think India stands on the global stage? And because we have a new entrant coming in, every other day, not literally, but you know what I mean. So what are you doing to, really cement your position in the market? What is your strategy to stay ahead in the game?
So, yeah, I think firstly, India has come a long way. I think when we were started, India was really far, far behind in terms of just financial technology or the financial infrastructure that was getting used. And today we are at a stage that, of course, it's the third largest fintech market globally. and still there's a lot of potential for growth. But also, before I answer your question about what we are doing to differentiate ourselves, I think I would like to highlight that just in the last 1 year, it has been quite fascinating to see how many of the larger markets, or what we call developed markets, are now realizing, whether it is looking at the success of UPI or just the networks that we have built for all kind of payments, whether it is bill payments, whether it's UPI, whether that the stacks that are in place in larger markets in Europe or US are far, far behind. I mean, I'll just take a simple example. Even in UAE, we think it's the most developed, country nearby, amazing roads, infra, etc. But if you look at their financial infra, if you'll do a P2P payment, you will not get the money in real time. In fact, you may not even get it the same day. You might get it after 24 hours. Until 3 years ago in US, it took 3 days to complete a transaction from my bank account to your bank account. So we have come a long way. It's that, that doctrine that, if you never had the CDMA rollout, you can really go to GSM. And the same thing is happening right now in fintech per se. And many global markets are actually coming to India to arouse these fintech companies that why don't you bring your tech to our markets as well. And I know for a fact, including ourselves, that there are a lot of markets being explored. So you will see in the next few years, Indian financial technology getting used in global markets, because they will have to rewire the way they have built things in several use cases of payments. So that's one. Now to answer your question, so I think India is definitely a heated fintech market. While there are, startups coming up in all the different verticals, whether it is investment products, insurtech, or lending for that matter. But I think at a platform scale, there is so much that has happened that you don't really see any large platform, coming in. Simply put, because many platforms now have more than 100 million users. We ourselves have 135 million users. Any new player who starts the payments game today will need at least $500 million to get to that level of scale, per se. So I think at the platform level, we don't see competition. So then what is the competition? The competition is differentiation in the mindset of the user. We all know that the Indian user is a value-conscious user. So how do you differentiate your offering, your product from at a platform level to the end consumer, to the small merchant, to the large merchant? And I think that's where we at Mobikwik have been focusing very clearly. We are not trying to become the largest platform by virtue of number of users or by virtue of number of transactions. There are lots of players doing that. Frankly speaking, nobody can compete with $1 trillion balance sheet like Google. So what's the point of even trying to do that? So I think the play really is to come up with an offering which can engage your users, which is why we've been focusing last 4-5 years very significantly on credit, digital credit, and that too credit which is part of the daily life of the user. So I think that's where the offering can have value, and that's where we are pushing the pedal. By bringing unique credit as well as investment products to the user.
Well, more power to you. Ghazal, I want to come back to you. You recently put up a tweet saying that this is an era of why-based brands. It's lesser about what you're selling, but more about why you're selling. So how do you communicate this why to the consumers? In other words, what has been the focus of your communication strategy, especially because consumers today are very discerning, they're very aware and also critical. So yeah, talk to us about that.
I think this is something that has been really close to our hearts from day one. Like Varun said, that brands are built in the minds of consumers, and Upasana talked about differentiation that can help your product stand out. I think apart from these two things which are core to brand building, another thing that we very strongly believe in is purpose-based brands. Giving your consumers reasons to buy into you and not switch over when he might want to consider that as one of the options, right? So not just good quality products, but imagine if along with that, I give you a reason to buy into my brand. Because with every order that you place on our website, we will actually do something on your behalf which you really believe in. For example, with MamaEarth, we are planting tree on behalf of our consumers, And not just planting or sending a communication, but sending them the picture of the tree, sending them the geolocation of that tree. And then, also they can track the location, they can track how that plant has been growing. And over years, a lot of our consumers are plant parents to more than 5, 10, 15 plants now. Now, that's a strong reason, a visible differentiation that you're giving to your consumers, and hence they will stick with you because they're not just buying into your what, but also into the why, right? So similarly, I think across our company, which is Honasa, each of our brands are purpose-driven. So with Aqualogica, we are doing the same by providing clean drinking water to villages and families who don't have access to the same. With the Derma company, which is a brand based on active skincare, we are giving education to, we are setting up science labs for kids who don't have access to that education. So similarly, I think it's just about showing the consumers the difference that they are making by buying into you, which sets us apart from anybody else.
Nice. I would like to thank you all for being here today, and thank you so much. We'll catch up.
Thank you.
Definitely outside.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was part 2 of our Springboard series. We're joining you here from New Delhi, talking about everything that is going to take to catapult India's entrepreneurs into the next era of growth. On tomorrow's episode, I'm in conversation with 2 of India's foremost minds when it comes to the economy, Surjit Bhalla and Montek Singh Ahluwalia. Here's a sneak peek as we're ending tonight's show.
In the past, you didn't have that much information. Most of the policymakers were operating in the dark because you didn't have information. Now, with the startups, with the education, why can't and why won't policy making be a lot more informed and therefore a lot more accurate?
Well, population is always an asset if it's actually skilled. So this is a huge issue. I mean, how skilled is our population? And secondly, are we doing enough to, as it were, make it appropriate for the kind of challenges we're going to face?